Welcome back. For today's video, going to be touching on three polls that came out today. One is a new Fox News poll that's taking a look at the national picture of the 2020 Democratic primary, and then also two state-specific results, in those two states being Texas and California. Two of the most important primaries this time around. Their primaries are being held pretty early on in the process on Super Tuesday, and being the most populous states, they have a ton of pledged delegates up for grabs, so it's vital that these upper-tier Democratic hopefuls do well in those states if they want to add on and rack up those pledged delegates. Points that gets divvied up based on how well you do in those particular states, and you have to crack at least that 15 percentage point threshold to be a part of the candidates that divvy up those pledged delegates. But first, to start off with this Fox News poll that just came out, and it's really positive news for the Bernie Sanders camp because he is surging 8 points better than where he was in the prior month's Fox News poll. So he's up to 18 percentage points as opposed to last month where he was only at 10 percentage points. Perhaps an outlier there from the last poll that we got from Fox News, but also for Bernie Sanders, the highest point total that he's gotten in a Fox News poll since all the way back in March. So definitely some positives to take out here for the Sanders camp. In contrast, Elizabeth Warren receding by 4 points. She was at 20%, now down to 16. And then also Joe Biden receding by a couple of points. He was at 31%, now at 29%. And this is the first Fox News poll that we've seen in around a half year where Biden has dipped below at least 30% of support. So that is also something to keep in mind. So in terms of the polls that we've generally been seeing, we've seen this positive trend from Elizabeth Warren in recent months, while Biden has been inching back step by step, and Sanders has been more or less hanging around similar numbers. But this is one poll where we are seeing a little bit of a reverse for Sanders, and jumping up 8 points from one month to the next is pretty impressive when you're looking at a national poll. But again, you can get these outliers, which potentially last month might have been, but nonetheless, definitely a positive sign nationally for the Sanders camp to take out from this particular Fox News poll. Now I want to go over and take a look at a couple of state-specific results. First, starting with Texas, and we see Joe Biden leading the pack here at 26% support, followed by Beto O'Rourke, who's right at around 20%. In third place, you have Bernie Sanders at around 17.5%, and then Elizabeth Warren at 11 percentage points. And again, like I said, the state of Texas, extremely important. It's relatively early on in the process. They have a ton of pledged delegates up for grabs, and if Warren only produces 11% in the state of Texas, that means she's not going to get much in the way of pledged delegates. Still a long way to go, and this is just one poll to take numbers from, so I'm going to have to be continuing to look at the data with this one for Warren if she can continue to build the support like we've been seeing from her in recent months, and if she's able to continue to carry that over into an important state like Texas. We still have, around 4 or 5 months until we get into the first early caucus and primary states, so there's still a lot of time for these candidates to try to gain that support and have those positive moments in the debates, and we'll see if they're capable of doing just that. So now moving over and taking a look at the state of California. Again, very populous state early on in the process, and we can see Elizabeth Warren doing really well here, leading the way at 25% of support, followed by Bernie Sanders at 23%, Joe Biden at 18%, Kamala Harris at 11%, and another very disappointing for the senator from the state of California, not even reaching that 15% threshold. I went over a California poll in my prior video where Harris was doing even worse than the 11% that we're seeing from her in this Change Research poll. And then you have Pete Buttigieg at 10%, Andrew Yang at 3%, Beto O'Rourke, Tulsi Gabbard, and Cory Booker each at 2 percentage points respectively. And if this is how things played out, if we were having the primaries today, this would be extremely positive for Warren and Sanders, divvying up the most of the pledged delegates from the most populous state of California. It would be a huge boost to their total delegate count that you need to build up to win the nomination. Now, this time around at the Democratic Party, the superdelegates aren't going to be part of the first ballot. So if you reach the threshold of pledged delegates needed to win the nomination, then you can win the nomination without bringing in those superdelegates. But if nobody reaches the threshold, then you go to a second ballot, and that's when the pledged delegates would come in to the process, and it would be a disaster. Obviously, if you have a situation where who's ever winning in terms of total number of pledged delegates didn't end up going on and winning the nomination, I can just see how much of a disaster that would be, for instance, if somebody like a Warren or a Sanders were winning in total pledged delegates, but it was still relatively close between one of those candidates and Joe Biden, and then you get a situation where the super delegates come in on the second ballot and push somebody like a Joe Biden over the top. That would be a disaster. Don't really want to think about that potential happening where you have the superdelegates, the party insiders, subverting the will of the voter. Hopefully, it's a situation where one candidate has enough pledged delegates on the first ballot where you don't even have to worry about those superdelegates being a factor in deciding who goes on and wins the nomination. So those are the 3 polls that I wanted to touch on here in this video. Nationally, and then also Texas and California, those state-specific results that are extremely important this time around in the Democratic primary process. If you're interested in more of these types of videos in the future, you can click that subscribe button. Also, I'll have links for these polls posted down in the description. So I appreciate you guys stopping on in, and consider subscribing for more, and hope to see you guys back here for my next video.